Welcome to Raw Conscious Talk Podcast. I'm your host, Tammy Cheney. Today's guest has been a long-time guest that I've been waiting to bring on. And we have had such amazing conversations just in the last few days. I'm so excited about this video. So today I want to welcome Janas. Welcome.
Thanks for having me on. We've had some phenomenal conversations. It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we are going to be talking about his NDE today and so much more, and I'm so excited. So, Jason, why don't you go ahead and just start wherever you want to start, and in your NDE, whether it be you need to give backstory, whatever, and
Sure.
And then we'll just flow from there. Just let the spirit flow.
All right. Well, here it goes. It's coming up on 6 years now. Wow. And I still remember it like it happened 2 seconds ago. It was April of 2020, and I will give you a little backstory. I'm a Midwestern boy. I grew up in the Midwest in Illinois and Wisconsin, but as a little boy in Illinois with my mom. She was very abusive, but it was just another small Midwestern town in a town called Wakanda, Illinois. And I grew up as Gen Xer. I didn't know it at the time, but just a deeply loving boy. I didn't know it at the time, but I was a deep empath, and I loved deeply. I just loved so deeply. Looking back at my little boyhood, and but my mother was a hardcore alcoholic and very abusive. So I grew up in a very abusive family. My dad they divorced when I was very young, so about 6 or 7. And, I just grew up with that abuse. I mean, beatings, wicked beatings. And I did my best to save my sister, and don't really need to get into that. But I was thrown into that kind of chaos, that kind of narcissism, that kind of, dysfunctional. And then I moved to the state of Wisconsin to go live with my father. He wasn't the best, but it kind of grew into something a little more different. I really began to withdraw. And when I was a young kid, I grew up Catholic. I grew up Christian, not through my parents. It was through my grandparents on my dad's side that gave me my Catholicism. And when I was still living in Wakanda in the 70s, I got taken out of public school and put into a Catholic school for 2 years, where that Bible was shoved down my throat on a consistent basis. I read that thing from cover to cover, enacted plays. I was an altar boy. In that moment, as a little kid, as all little kids, were taught wrong. So I believe that the Bible was God's written word, that there are fallen angels, there's demons, there's devils, there's this, there's that, right? So I firmly believed in what I was being taught was the truth, right? Who wouldn't? You believe mom and dad, right? So as I'm growing up, I'm getting this Catholic upbringing from my grandparents. And then, as I said, I was abused as a little boy. So one summer morning, my grandmother woke me up to go to church. And I remember her waking me up, and I kicked her really hard. And I sat up and I said, "Don't you ever." And I said, "Don't you ever wake me up again to go to church." I said, "God doesn't love me." I said, "It's clear." I said, "Don't you ever wake me up." I said, "I will take care of myself. God hates me. He doesn't love me." And of course, that's coming from the abuse. And I said, "So don't you ever wake me up." Right. And that was the last moment I ever had a relationship with God. So this was like 1978, 79. So I was like 8 or 9 years old. And she was horrified, just heartbroken. I could see it in her eyes, and she went off to church, and she never woke me up for church again. And that was the last time I had a relationship, with God and with Jesus. I didn't stop believing. There's two different things. I stopped having a relationship, right? So as what I found out, that I am a chosen one, a light worker, starseed. I had a very brutal life, a very, very difficult life. And I'm still going through it now. But, the finances were never near, my marriages failed. Any kind of relationship that I thought I had was abandoned or, just unworthy. And I went through my whole life just feeling that I was completely and totally unworthy of love, of having a successful career, having money, anything. And that fell onto my oldest child, where she was, I don't know, abused at times. She went through the abuse that I went through, and it was just a very difficult life for me, right? Struggling just to even scrape by. And that's the way my life went. And the entire time, for 49 years, I felt unworthy of anything in my life, anything. And it showed. I had nothing to show. I have nothing in savings, no career, nothing, which I know now is meant to be. But at that time, I didn't know, right? So now April 2nd rolls around. I'm in a job that I just utterly despise. And throughout my whole career, I've probably had 30 jobs, okay, where most people are like, you're completely and totally unreliable. And again, feeling unworthy, you're a worthless shit, So, and it shows by your work habits or work career. Well, now I know I wasn't meant to be in those jobs. So we can get into that later. But I came home from work. And prior to that, I was waking up with blood in my mouth for the last couple of weeks. And I'm like, the iron taste, and I'm like, did I bite my tongue or lip? No. And I'm feeling really, really tired. Like even though I would sleep 6, 7 hours, I felt like I'd maybe got 20 minutes of sleep, right? For 2 weeks. I mean, I was exhausted. Came home from work, made a simple dinner. I didn't have it in me. I made a bagel sandwich with an egg on it. And I sat down to eat, turned on the boob tube, just watching TV. Beautiful summer day, beginning of spring in Wisconsin. So, took a bite, ate it, and then I went to take another bite, and I burped, and I'm like, oh my God, what was that? It was the most wretched thing in the world. Took another bite, swallowed it, went to take another bite, and I just coughed up blood. And I mean, bright red blood went all over my sandwich and on my plate. And I'm talking not a little amount, I'm talking a mouthful of blood. And not, when you cut your finger, you get that dark red blood, right? This was as pink as, well, pink. And I was like, and I'm just sitting there, like, right? And I'm like, I'm trying to make sense of what, and then I cough again. And now I have a plate full of blood, and I'm like, and it's coming. Every couple seconds, I'm coughing up bright red, pink blood. The most wretched taste I have ever had. Now I'm starting to panic because now at the same time, I'm losing the ability to breathe. I can't breathe. I'm watching cars going by, people walking down the sidewalk, and I knew instantly what was happening. I knew I was dying. There's no doubt about it. And I panicked. And, I'm like, I didn't know what to do. And then all of a sudden, my ex-wife popped into my mind. And she was a nurse. And so I'm frantically trying to call her like 5 or 6 times. And I can't breathe. And I'm continuously to cough up this. I mean, I'm in the kitchen sink, completely and totally filled with blood. And, I'm starting to FaceTime her, and like, I cannot breathe. I get a cough, and I get like, that quick breath, and I'm caught, more blood's coming. I know I'm dying. And she finally answered the phone, and she's like, what do you want? And I'm like, I tried to talk to her, and blood filled up the phone. And that was the first time in my entire marriage, 12-year marriage, that I actually saw love in her eyes. And I don't remember much after this. She goes, Jason. She sat up, and I said, I don't feel good. I said, I'm sorry. I need to go lie down. And she said, Jason, and she got real close. Jason, listen to me. If you lie down, you're going to die. Okay. She says, don't lie down. I said, I'm sorry. I don't feel good. And I'm coughing up blood. She sees it, right? And she said, and I just remember her saying this one more time, Jason, don't lie down. You will die. And I felt panic in her voice, right? And I'm picking up on it. And then all of a sudden the phone went dead, or the video. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, wow, why couldn't our marriage be like this? What a great conversation. I said, I don't feel good. I'm going to go lie down. And she let me. And I'm like, great. And that's all I remember. Now I wake up in what I know now is the ICU. It's now dark. My hands and feet are literally strapped to the bed. I couldn't move them more than a 16th of an inch. My legs, I'm laying in a spread eagle kind of thing. I have these weird socks on my feet. I don't know what they were. They kept filling up with whatever. It was just weird. I had an IV in my neck, stuff in my nose, and a tube down my throat. And I wake up to a myriad of doctors. And like I said, now it's pitch black. This was like 4 p.m. when I got home, spring day. So now it stays out late. I have no idea what happened in that time. It just went black, as black as night. I wake up and I mean, doctors in my face, and I'm like, Jason, do you know who you are? And I'm like, and I'm like, it's an odd feeling. Now you're like, do you know where you are? Well, clearly your brain is telling you, yeah. And then I like, I'm shaking my head, because I can't talk. I got a 2-inch tube down my throat, and I'm sitting here like, do you know who the president is? And I'm like, but while all of this was going on, the moment my eyes awoke, up to the left-hand corner, there was a TV. There was somebody in the corner of that room standing there. As clear as day. I couldn't see it, but I could feel it. I was just trying to, as much as I could move my head to try to get to that TV to look at it. I could feel it. Somebody was standing there. And it was a constant presence, I don't know what kind of presence it was a very comforting presence. It was a very loving presence, right? So I'm in the ICU for a month, right? And I lost 75 pounds. I became very lethargic, right? So now we're just going to fast forward. Now the entire time I'm in the ICU, that presence is there, okay? It never moved. It never faltered. It never wavered, nothing. So now I wake up and they had taken the tube out, the stuff in my, my neck. And in the beginning, I was like, I was itching from the fentanyl that I found out that I was on for the pain. I had never experienced the amount of pain that I was in. It was mind altering pain. I would have chopped off my own head to make it stop. Right. So, and that's what when I said, you want it, so, cause I couldn't talk, so I could just barely scribble. I wrote itch, and they were like, you itch? And I'm like, hands, and they're like, if we undo your hands, meaning they thought I would rip out the tube and rip out, and I itched, and I was just, they figured out I wasn't going, and I was just itching my whole body, right? And I found out that what they had to put that in there because they restarted my heart, right? Because I crashed at some point in time, apparently. So, so the entire time I'm looking at and just staring at the TV, and I got to the point where one of the nurses came in and is like, Jason, do you want us to turn on the TV? And I'm like, I couldn't speak because there's a tube, and I'm like, I mean, how do you tell somebody there's somebody standing there? Can't you see? Can't you feel that? Right? And they would have thought, clearly I'm nuts because all I see is a TV. So, I just was there for a while. And then at the end of the month, they had taken the tube out, the IV out. I couldn't talk. I just couldn't talk. I just could not talk. I was so weak. They took out the catheter. And I don't know if I had woken up or whatever, but there was no one in my room. I had no idea what time it was, what day it was, anything, right? I have no idea. And I was staring at the TV, but there was nobody in my room. And if I get emotional on you, it's because I'm telling you just like it happened. I I don't know where this came from. I don't know why. I still don't. But I got on my elbows as much as I could, and I was just shaking uncontrollable because I had no strength. And I'm shaking. And this is the first time in over 45 years that I cried out to God. And I spoke his name. And I said, please, please don't let me die. Please. I said, I know I abandoned you and I'm sorry.
Mhm.
I said, please don't take my daughters away from me, please. Let me see my children again. I said, I know I don't deserve it. I said, please don't take them from me. Let me see them again. And I'm like, I'm shaking and I couldn't talk. It was just a hoarse voice. And I'm like, please, there's somebody, you know, that I won't mention her name. I said, please don't take her from me. Please. Let me hold her hand. Let me smell her coffee breath. Let me smell her. Let me make love to her. And in that moment, I was now at the top of the ceiling and I could see everything around, everything. 360-degree vision. All pain had stopped. I was young again and I was juiced. And I mean, like, I was, ugh. And I could see everything. I could see the people in all the rooms, even though my focus was straight ahead. And I'm at the top of the ceiling looking down at this thing laying on the bed that I had no love of, this thing at all. Um, and I'm ensconced in this incredible love. It was as warm as the sun. And this light, it just flowed through me like a river. I was as warm as the sun, and it just radiated through me, and it permeated every ounce of my being. And I'm looking out through the wall, and I could now see this field of beautiful trees. And I'm looking through the wall, and I could see every blade of grass in this field. And I mean every blade of grass. I could see the serrations in them. I could see the veins. I could see the center line. I could see everything. And I could see the outline of their soul. And I was feeling this love from them and how happy they were to see me. Same thing with the trees. I had never seen colors like that before. They were the most beautiful blues and greens, and the white clouds were just, I mean, I've never seen white like that, or green or blue, or the brown of the trees. And I could see the tree of the soul, and I was just like, then all of a sudden it just like, I was like, I'm home. I'm like, home, right? And I'm like, ooh, I'm not supposed to be here right now, right? And I'm like, and then the next thought that barely began to come into my, I can't say mind or this thing, because that's laying down on the bed. And I was like, oh, and I'm looking, what a beautiful day to die. And I'm like, it was so normal. It was so loving and so peaceful. Like, I knew exactly where I was. I knew that the light that I had now merged with and became one with, and I was one with everything that has ever existed or will ever exist, right? I knew I had merged with my Father and became one with God, right? And I knew I was home. I knew I was what you would call heaven, right? And I am just being held and adored by my Father. And then the guilt and the shame, because I had, as a younger kid, I had bisexual experiences. I had affairs. I beat people. I hurt people. I really wasn't a good human being for most of my life, right? Because of the abuse that I went through. I either abused people or I got abused. And that's just the way it went. And I knew from an early age that, when I went to Catholic school, I was doomed because of these. I was an abomination to my Father, a sick, worthless, unworthy, right? And now I'm feeling that unworthiness, right? And I began to become ashamed of myself. And the more I did, the more I was loved. Oh, the love bestowed upon me. It is something that this archaic, barbaric language cannot describe in any way, shape, or form on what true love really is from our Father, how we are loved from God. From I call God Father because in the moment of that transition into, heaven, into becoming again one with Father, I felt like I was his one and only son. The love bestowed upon me was just phenomenal. And then, again, time at this moment in time, there was no time. That could have been 50 seconds, or it could have been 5 hours. I have no idea. Time ceased to exist, or it doesn't exist. So, but in that moment, another presence showed up that I recognized instantly, instantly, and that was of Yeshua of Jesus, right? Because during when I was crying out, I said, "I love you, and I never abandoned you, or I never stopped loving you, or Jesus." And I said, "I'm sorry." And in that moment, what was I doing? I was recreating that love connection, right? That Father wants from us, right? And he's saddened by those that don't have that love connection. He won't interfere with your free will, right? But I was reestablishing my love connection to home, to Father, right? That's who was waiting in the corner of the room. I didn't know it at the time, but now I'm in this light and love. And so when Yeshua showed up, oh my God, the love bestowed upon me. I it was stifling. It was so much. I mean, I just basked in this love. It was just phenomenal, phenomenal in every aspect of it, right? And I knew who it was instantly. And I was like, I'm home, right? And I knew where I was. And at that moment in time, I had no desire to stay. I had didn't care about the kids. I didn't care about, the love of my life that we were separated from, any of it. Everything that was taking place in the world at that moment on April 2nd of 2020, or whenever it was, um, everything was happening as it should be. Everything, even the people dying that I'm watching in those rooms from the back of my head, right? I can see all the tubes and valves and stuff, and I'm seeing everything. I'm just focusing now on both ahead of me, and I'm still seeing every blade of grass. I'm seeing everything. It's so hard to describe what is taking place because it's everything. It is just everything. It's phenomenal how we are dulled by sight, sound, smell, touch, which is just pathetic. What we're in, it truly is. We have no idea the concept of what we can experience when we're detached from this pile of crap. Um, so he came in and showed me uber amounts of love, and I was just loved and adored. For the first time in my life, I felt love. I felt loved. I felt worthy of being loved, right? And then Yeshua put his hands, what I would call on my soul or spirit or whatever, and then guided me back down. Our soul isn't in our body, it's wrapped around it. And then, I felt his hands on my body and pushed me back down onto the bed. Not hard, like it was maniacal or evil, but just softly and gently. And then, woof, I was out like a light. Again, how long? I have no idea, but again, out. And then I woke up to a myriad of doctors, trying to, and I'm like, I immediately looked at the TV and that presence is gone. And I'm like, what was that? What was that? What just happened to me? And I'm like looking at everybody and they're like, hey, we got some medicine. Out. Everybody out. Out. Get out. You need to take medicine. No, I don't. Get out. Everybody out. I'm fine. I'm fine. Get out. Right. And they went, everybody left, shut the door. And I'm like, what the hell was that? And I'm like, it's dawning on me that I had died and that I went to a place I shouldn't have gone. But in that moment, in that trillionth of a second, everything that I had ever been taught was wrong. Right. And I knew it. And I was like, I came back and that's the first thing I said to her. I was like, I was lied to. Oh, I was lied to, right? In a horrific way. And then that moment was the beginning of, I'm going to let the world know the truth, right? As soon as I get well and as soon as things start happening. And after my NDE, I had profound out of body experiences. I've had meetings with angels, 4 of them now. And it just brought me down to my teachings. And, two
So
years,
what was the lie?
oh,
What
the
did you
lie.
know you were lied to about?
Well, we're going to throw somebody under the bus because they're the biggest lying trash there is, the Catholic Church, right? Everything I was taught, there is a devil. There is no devil. There is no hell. There are no demons. There's no Bible. God didn't write a Bible. There is only love. I was lied to, right?
Mhm.
I had done nothing wrong. Nothing. There is no judgment. There is no such thing as sin. It doesn't exist. But if you have to equate sin with anything, sin is simply a lack of love. And if you look at the world right now, we're lacking a shit ton of love right now.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I say I was lied to, that really pissed me off. I mean, it really pissed me off. Um, and then 2 months, I fell into a deep depression when I got home. I mean, I checked myself out of the hospital. I can't tell anybody what just happened to me. They'll think I'm nuts. I mean, they will literally think I'm looking at my body. I can see all of you walking around while I'm looking. No, they'll lock me up. And I knew it. I said, I had to get out there. So I checked myself out. Now I'm at home. I got fired from my job. I've got eviction notices. They repossessed my vehicle because I was gone for a while, right? No making payments. You get car gone. And I'm severely depressed. I couldn't walk. I couldn't talk. I couldn't eat. Couldn't go to the bathroom. I laid in bed. I laid in my own feces for 3 days because I couldn't push myself up to walk to go to the bathroom. It's
Wow.
gross, but I had nobody to help me. Nobody to help me. So I had to learn how to walk. I had to learn how to talk. I had to learn how to, because I would try and take a drink and it'd be like giving a newborn something to drink, right? Where it falls out, right? So I'm spilling crap all over myself. And it took me a few months to get through that process. I mean, I would literally get in the shower and then all of a sudden be unable to turn off the water. So I would collapse and sit there. I couldn't move my arm so it was a brutal assault that I had to overcome when I got home. But in the meantime, I'm still feeling all of this love. I'm still feeling the connection to home, right? And I'm like, and now I'm yelling at God, like, listen, pal, you can't do this to somebody, okay? You can't do that. That's some shit. You can't do that, right? Because I know what's taking place, right? I was home. I knew where I was, heaven, where I come from, and none of the bad stuff. There's only love, right? So, and I'm having this argument with him, right? Not argument. It's one way for right now. And then I finally made it to my room, and for the last time, I'm shaking my fist at him. You picked the wrong person, pal. Should have been a pope, right? A bishop or somebody. And this is when he actually spoke to me. Now, this is 2 months later. God will never speak to you unless it is beyond absolute necessary, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, it was. So when I said that the last time, the voice is loud and clear as can be. A little tiny, kind of little irked, but not much. It was all love. He said, why not? You are my son. And I collapsed on my knees. And again, I don't know where this came from, but I put my hands up and I said, for all that I am you. Meaning, I am God. I knew
Mm-hmm.
exactly who I was. And now, is the world going to listen to this? Right.
Mm-hmm.
So then, he's like, that's why when he was kind of getting that little irk, he's like, come on, man, I need you up and running. We got things to do. I didn't know that at the time. Right. So as I'm trying to recover, he's like, start your website. I'm like, I have no idea how that came into fruition. Somebody helped me do that. Same thing with my YouTube channel. Start your YouTube. I never even looked at YouTube. I don't know. Right. That came to fruition. Right. He's like, come on, man, I need you up and going. Now, did my life become easier? Hell no. No, it didn't come easier. No. I mean, I'm going through a bunch of stuff right now that would, you know, it's beyond, I'm homeless right now, basically. But, he shut me down in Wisconsin where I lived my whole life. my job collapsed, right? And I've had so many spiritual experiences there, but basically, one of them was like, would you, one of the angels was like, would you be willing to relocate? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Where? How about Sacramento? Why California? Okay, sure. So guess where I'm at now, right? And so now, has it become any easier? No, but you don't grow through walking on a warm, sunny beach with your ankles, in warm water. You grow through pain. You grow through suffering, right? Now, is suffering real? No, you bring that on, but that is literally where you grow. Like when you leave a healthy relationship, or that person had an affair, or whatever, right? And you're just completely gut broken, heartbroken, sobbing, right? But you learn something from it, right?
Mhm.
You did. Take what you've learned and you move on. That's how you evolve as a soul, right? So you grow through hardships. You don't grow through, love. Otherwise, we'd stay home. There's no point in, coming to, well, we're going to experience, well, then we can just stay home. You grow through the pain. You grow through those massive adversities, right? And as I began to understand that, even what I'm going through now, it makes sense. Do I fuss a little bit? Yeah, I gave him the business the other day, So it's, it's a beautiful thing, right? But, I tell anybody, you don't want to have a near-death experience. I went through my ascension in 2023, which was brutal. That was brutally painful, beyond painful. When you transition from a carbon-based body into the silica-based body, or the, not the light body, that's the third body, I can't think of it right now, the crystalline body, right? So when I transitioned into the crystalline body, your body is being redesigned on a cellular level while you're alive. It's painful, okay? Very painful. I lost, again, about 80 pounds, and again, lost my job because I was unable to work. Oh, great, here we go again. Eviction notices, all of this crap again. And I'm like, you know, and now I'm going through my awakening, which is the ego death, the dark night of the soul, which is another whole thing in itself. And I just did a video or a live session last night about, because people were asking me about consciousness and all of this. So I explained that, which would be too much here right now, but
I watched it and it's fantastic. So everybody check out his YouTube channel. We'll talk about it at the end. He'll let you know his handle and where you can find him. Go ahead.
yeah. So as I'm going through this, I will speak, unless you want to hear about all my angel encounters, but the last one happened on October 3rd of 2025. I had moved to California. I lost my job, right? They raised my rent to where I couldn't afford it. I'm like, oh, I know what you're doing. I know clearly what you're doing. You want me out of here. So I'm like, God almighty. So I basically heard purge. So I took everything I've ever owned for 50 years, except for a few things, and literally threw everything out. My TV, I had bought a brand new $80 couch that got saved, a brand new bed that got saved, my guitars, few things from the kids, my paintings and stuff like that. But other than that, that got shipped to Arizona, because I'm like, I'm not moving to California. F you guys. Right. So, yeah, well, that didn't work out. So that they shut that process down too. And here I'm at. So when I was sitting, because I had nowhere to go. I had no job. I had no money. I was out of money. I'm homeless. I'm living at a truck stop in my car. I'm like, this is great. This is just great. Right? I said, I'm established, and now I'm homeless, living in a car. Right? So for 2 months, I lived in my car, totally frustrated. Right? So I get up in the morning and I go to the bathroom. And this is an angel encounter that I had that got me to where I'm at now. And this is the fourth one. As I went into the bathroom, there was an older gentleman standing there, and he just smiled at me. And I'm like, um, good morning, you know. So I passed him. Now listen to this. I passed him. Okay. Now I actually walk into the bathroom. He's standing there. I walk. I look at him like, he's just staring at me, kind of smiling. I'm like, what is this about? I'm trying to put two and two together, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? Right. And now when I get done going to the bathroom where I normally wash my hands, he's standing there, like knows exactly where I'm going to go wash my hands. And he's smiling at me. He didn't say anything, just smiling at me. So again, listen, I washed my hands. I passed him. I'm walking out of the bathroom down the long hall. There he's standing in the center of the store again. I'm like, okay. I was like, maybe I'm asleep. Maybe this is a dream, right? And I'm like, no, ouch. Okay, so I'm walking. This is weird. So I get down in my Jeep, and there's walking in front of me, just staring at me. I'm like, what is going? Parks next to me, and he says, is it okay to park here? It's only an hour parking. And I said, yeah, it's fine. And I said, I've been here for 2 months. Nobody said anything because nobody cares, right? And then he started talking to me, and he was actually telling me about some of the dreams I was having, but I was thinking of my twin flames, so they were kind of sensual. And he said, well, I do have an Argentinian girlfriend. She has a lot of money, and, would you want her? And I'm like, no, no, I want no. And he's like, you're Jason, right? And I went, how the hell do you know that? I'm like, who are you? And he goes, I'm just a guy. I said, no, you're not. And I'm really feeling our connection, right? I'm feeling his energy. We're merging it. I said, who are you? And he goes, I'm just a man. I said, no, you're not. I said, you're either one of my guides or you are an ascended master. Which one? And we started talking, right? And he goes, Jason, you're telling me nothing that I don't know. And I said, who are you? He said, you, Jason, you put me here. He goes, you are in alignment and you are powerful. You need to move now. And I'm like, and I said, who are you? And he reiterated it again. He's not smiling now. He's beyond serious. He goes, Jason, you are in alignment and you are powerful. You need to move now. Somebody needs you. And I'm like, who? And I'm like, who? Go where? And I'm like, no, he wants me in Sacramento. I don't want to go to Sacramento. And I'm like, he said, he's looking at me in the car and he's kind of like, you need to buy some new clothes for the job interview. And I'm like, what job interview? I said, I've been trying to find jobs for the last 2 months and you guys won't let me have a job. And I said, now I'm going to get a job. And he said, don't talk about spirituality. I'm so confused. And I'm like, and he said it again. He says, you need to move now in urgency, right? So, and then he walked away and just disappeared, drove. And when his car get out of sight, I looked and his car was gone. There was nothing there, right? And I'm like, and I woke up that morning. I tried using my phone. My phone was disconnected, not disconnected. It was staticky, garbly. I couldn't text. I couldn't do anything. They shut me down. They were shutting me down where I was, right? They wanted me to go to Sacramento. Where? Who needs me? So the frustration was there. And I'm like, I'm mad. I really gave the old man the business. I'm screaming at him. Oh, I go up there and I get this hotel room at the Best Western. People now, members of my YouTube channel are sending me money. They're helping me pay for rooms. They're buying me food. I'm living off a can of green beans a day or a can of Dinty Moore beef stew, right? So I get in there and all of a sudden this person calls me for a job. Long story short, a week later, I get this job. Where? In Sacramento. And I'm like, oh my God. Right. And I'm like, I get this job out of nowhere, right? It's a shit job, no money. Like everything in California is so expensive. I mean, $5 an hour. I mean, $5 a gallon, $6 a gallon for gas. Food, you'd go to like Denny's and get, eggs, bacon, and some pancakes for what, $15? Here it's $38 for a plate of
Wow.
food, right? It's insane. For 3 pancakes, 2 eggs, so a little plate of hash browns, it was $30. $30.
Mm.
Okay. So, and I'm like, $19 an hour. What is I and I was mad. I said, so you went from having me established making $5 an hour more in a less expensive state to ship me out here homeless with still no place to go and a job $5 an hour less in the most expensive state. I said, well done. Well done. Thank you so much. Right? Frustration boiling over. And I'm still going through it now. So now 2 weeks ago, I lost my job out of the clear blue. I was driving home from work. I've been living at a hotel, getting food, trying to save some money up. And whoop, Jason, we have to let you go. We have no idea why. Here we go. No idea. They would not give us a reason why you were let go. And I said, yeah, don't worry about it. I do. I said, we're fine, let go. And now I'm sitting here jobless in a hotel. Somebody just gave me $500, a very good friend of mine, to keep staying here, in like divine timing, right? At the very last minute, I get $500. He gave me $150 for food. Ah, wow. Right. So if you think having a near-death experience and going through your awakening and ascension is easy, I'm here to tell you, no, you don't. It's a brutal assault, right? So that is what I'm going through right now. And every job for the last 2 weeks, nobody will call me. Why? Right? I think, or somebody sent me a video about this guy who's lost, all these jobs in the last 5 years. And the guy said, well, welcome to the club. You're not supposed to be having those types of jobs. You're supposed to be doing somewhere else. And I was like,
That's
oh my
right.
God. And I'm like, oh my God. Okay. So I quit. I'm not, I know this sounds odd, but I am no longer going to apply for jobs. Right. I have this job interview that I'm probably not going to go to on Monday morning. Why? Because I won't get it. Why? They're going to say, no, we've got something else planned. So instead of falling into fear, because I don't have fear anymore. Fear went out the window the moment of my death. Fear is an illusion, just like death, or just like what we're experiencing now. It's all an illusion. It's simply a dream we're having. What we're experiencing right here, you and I talking, that we did that billions of years ago. That this is right. So, but trying to teach that to other people, they're like, but it feels real. I said, well, of course. When you have a nightmare, does it seem real until you wake up screaming, ah? And then you look around and you go, oh, it's just a dream. Well, you haven't woken up from the dream yet. That's called death, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I experienced on the other side. I realized that none of this is real. What we're experiencing is simply an illusion, a dream. The movie The Matrix with Keanu Reeves, it's a dream. Like Avatar, in the first Avatar, when he plugs in, he falls asleep. His avatar awakes. We fall asleep, these things come awake, right? You're born out of mama. So I'm on a journey, man. It's not ending. So it's a continuous thing of, now I just simply believe, right? Is it frustrating? It's maddeningly frustrating, right? I know the partner, my dream, my twin flame, not a soulmate, but a twin flame, which is different. I don't want to get into it now unless you want to get into it. But when that meeting with that angel on October 3rd, which happened to be my twin flame's birthday, how ironic is that? When I said, do you want this girl? And I said, no. And I said, my partner is coming. And he said, yes, when you're established. Well, this isn't established, pal. Homelessness, joblessness isn't established. So when is this coming, right?
You're probably more established than what you think.
I could very well be, I don't know, but it's you're trained and you're programmed the wrong way. We've been taught wrong. And that's the whole point of me teaching, is to tell you that we were never meant to do any of the things that we said. We're taught wrong. When I say, who are you? Well, so I'm a teacher, and well, I'm a wife, I have kids. No, that's not who you are. Who are you? Right?
A
But
powerful spiritual being.
I am a powerful, multidimensional being living multiple lives across multiple different dimensions and realities right now. Because everything that is taking place right now is right now. There is no past, there is no future. Everything is in the moment of now. So, and people can't wrap their head around, what do you mean there's no? Well, I did that 14. Well, show me that. Show you what? What you just talked about. I can't. I said, I know, because it doesn't exist. But you're holding on to something that doesn't exist. Why? And then you just see you see their confusion, right? So, well, so what are you going to worry about tomorrow? Well, I'm going to be evicted. How do you know you're going to be evicted? Is it here? No. How do you know? And if that did happen, then it's for your highest good. Where do you learn from? Easiness or difficulty? Difficult. Well, then clearly that's something you needed to go through. But you see, your whole life was created by you. Okay. You created your whole reality. Everything that you see from the moment you go to work, when you stopped at the red light, you put every single person there. You're the creator of your reality. When you go grocery shopping, you put every single person at the grocery store doing what they need to be doing. This is your reality. Okay, this is what you wanted to experience. You came up to God with your contract and said, this is what I want to experience. And he looks it over, right? Okay, so you're here, right? So the moment these awaken, right? When you open your eyes in the morning, everything you're feeling and seeing is a figment of your imagination. But more than that, it's what you chose to experience. If it's being lonely or away from a husband or away from a wife, divorced, whatever, I'm a chosen one, a starseed, a light worker, right? I was chosen for a very difficult life. In one of my out-of-body experiences, I was told I've died over 3,200 times.
Wow.
And I was like, this was, if you watch, it was like January or something. It was the night DeVar Hamlin died on the football field. It was 2022, I think, or January 2023 or something like that, where he made a tackle and he dropped dead. And in that moment, I had laid back and I was pulled out of my body. I mean, I was on a completely different realm, on another planet. And I'm like, ooh, I'm feeling love again. Beautiful ocean. There was a light being walking towards me, like a ball of light, and this undeniable presence next to me. And I'm like, and it was like Star Wars, where you can see the big planet here and another one right here. And I was like, and I'm like, who are you? And he goes, I'm Jeffrey. I've always been with you. And I'm like, Jeffrey. And I started laughing. I said, man, that's the Toys R Us giraffe. I said, I can't call you Jeffrey, man. And then what do? I call him Jeffrey. I said, Jeffrey. Now, again, there's no sense of time. Time disappeared. My apartment disappeared. I'm on another world, in another dimension, a higher dimension. And I'm like, Jeffrey, how many times have I been? How many times? I recognized the place, right? I knew, again, kind of a homish feeling. How many times have I died? How many times have I been here? And the number was instant. It was instant, over 3,200. I said, I've died over 3,200 times. And he said, very serious now. He was like, yes, you're ancient. And then I was pulled back into my body up on the couch. Now I looked at the TV. The whole football game was over. Everybody was gone out of the stands. Completely dark. I was gone for well over an hour, right? This conversation and this whatever took place, right? And I'm like, 3,200 times. I said, man, I've got to be bad at this. I'm not knowing what I was yet, right? And I said, what the hell does ancient mean? Ancient. I've never heard that before. And so then I went on a binge of what the hell is ancient, and I found that out when I was in an iron sharing group, right? Mm-hmm. With Hawaiian, with Sean Lether, as a matter of fact. And he finally called on me. He said, come on, Jason, talk. I said, come on, man, you haven't said anything. So he said, anything new happened to you? I said, as a matter of fact, a couple weeks ago, this happened. Well, there happened to be a guy, in there that has been doing research on near-death experiences for over 15 years, and he's wrote 4 books. His name was David Succi. So I explained this experience, the whole thing, right? And all of a sudden his hand went up, and he's like, kind of like, and Sean was like, and Sean let him talk. And I said, he goes, wow. He says, that's amazing. I said, I've never heard anything like that. He goes, do you know you're a chosen one? I said, chosen one? What the hell does that mean? Like the biblical crap, the chosen ones? He goes, and I'm like, then that just made me feel weird. I'm like, uh-oh. And I'm like, but then all of a sudden I felt this wave of energy just go whoosh. And I'm like, okay, that's true. I feel that. And he goes, you're a chosen one. He says, do you realize you have been walking this earth for over 30,000 years, helping humanity? And that just was like, I got choked up.
Wow.
And I was feeling that, and I'm like, now that made sense on why I've died over 3,200 times. Father keeps coming to me for these very difficult missions to help humanity evolve. I am the light in the darkness, right? That's why, well, from the time I was young, like in high school, they would always like, Jason, you need to teach. When I call on you in class, the way you teach, or, when you're explaining things is phenomenal. It's great. And then my mom said, in my early 20s, goes, because my mom didn't have a high school education, right? She goes, you should really become a teacher. So now all the signs are coming together, right? I'm putting 2 and 2 together. Here's the whole thing. So, and my mom was like, you explain things, even to those who are ignorant. You don't make them feel ignorant. You explain it really well. And she goes, you really need to be a teacher. And I'm like, then I get into college, right? Hey, the dean of the professor, the dean of the history, you should really be a teacher, I'm like, so I'm listening to you, pal. It's like, this is where you need to go. You're a teacher, but I had no idea it was going to be spiritually, right? So now, I'm having all of these signs like, you need to be a teach. And I'm like, nah. And I'm like, if I was teaching, what would I teach? Well, you'd be qualified to teach 7th through 12th grade. Oh, hell no. Women, no way am I dealing with hormones. No way. No, nope. So, of course, I'm taking all, they're showing me where I need to go. And I'm like, nope. And then I have my near-death experience. And what am I doing? If somebody said, Jason, in your 20s, you're going to be a teacher of God. Do you understand that you're going to be a teacher of God? I always said, you know what? You can go eat a bag of dirt. There's no way am I going to talk about God and church and all of this. And yet, here I am, right? Doing what I should have been doing my entire life. Why can't I hold a 9-to-5 job? I'm not meant to hold a 9-to-5 job. That's not where I'm meant to be at all. It's been proven over and over. If I go to this job interview on Monday, what's going to happen? I either won't get it or I'll be there 6 months or less and I'm out, right? And I've just wasted time. So now I sit here unemployed, having to spend over $2,000 a month on rent. I have no more money coming in. I can't find a job. Should I be afraid? Most people would be terrified, right? Look at me. I don't care. I know it will happen. Something will happen, right? Everything is in divine timing. So that's really my experience. Like I said, I've had other phenomenal out-of-body experiences. I've had 3 other meetings with profound angels, or what I would consume, Archangel Michael or an ascended master, right? And they connecting the dots to where I'm at now, right? So that's basically what it was. Them literally in the flesh, in the 3D, manifesting, guiding me to where I need to be, right? Mm-hmm. And I just met with somebody else like a month ago, and they were like, Jason, it said very phenomenal things, 2 of which happened already. But they said, you're going to have another profound spiritual experience very soon. Very soon. This one will be feminine. And it will be when you least expect it, but all of your answers will be, all of your questions will be answered, and, stuff like that. And so now I sit here in this hotel room I'm doing the best to not spend any money. I just paid for another week because my buddy sent me that money. I bought food, right? And I'm like, so I'm taking a shower this morning, and as I meditated, the first thing I did, I got kind of choked up, and I said, I know I've been fussy with you, Father. I said, this is hard, and I said, but I will do your will. And I said, please forgive me for being fussy. I don't understand. I said, I'm lost. I'm not scared. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where to go. I don't know why this is happening to me. And I said, but I am beyond grateful for what just happened. Gratitude is everything. And I tell them every day how grateful I am. And, in divine timing, this money came, this extra week here. So what's going to happen, right? So do I really need to go to that interview on Monday? The human Jason is saying, yeah, man, you need money. You need, your car payment, your food, you need to go. But inside of me is screaming, no, no, which is exactly the opposite of what you've been trained your entire life. So everything in my near-death experience was proven wrong, is what I'm saying. I was taught horrifically wrong. You were taught wrong. Everybody has been taught wrong. And I will teach you all the truth of who you are. The only reason you came here into this three-dimensional world is to figure out who you are, right? I know who I am. I explained that to you in the very beginning. All that I am. Who? God. I am God, right? I rediscovered who I am, right? We're all on you're all on the cosmic wheel, like a hamster wheel, right? You're all on a journey to nowhere. There's nowhere for you to go. You're already home. You're all in heaven. You're just having a dream. You put yourself into a deep sleep. Remember who you are. You're a God, right? What do gods do? They create. What are you creating? Your reality, your what you would call life, right? You're watching a rerun of something that happened a billion years ago, right? So your thoughts create that reality. So I'm here to teach you the right way to think. I've gone through everything. I firmly believe at some point in time before my life ends in this reality, I will become enlightened. This is my last lifetime. I just feel it, that whatever happens in this next time period, when this abundance and this wealth and this success comes, that this will be my last incarnation, right? And I'm like, I have no desire to be attached to it. There's nothing for me to learn. I figured the game out. I mastered it. I didn't master it yet. I'm not a master yet, but I figured it out, right? Now my job is to teach all of those who are in the moment of awakening the truth, right? They have questions. They want answers to, why am I feeling this way? Why have I lost my friends? Why do I don't want to go out to the bar anymore? Why do I don't want to be around this stuff anymore? I don't know what's happening to me. I do. They come to me, right? Like you said, you watched somebody didn't know what is consciousness, what is consciousness, right? So I explained it. I thought I did pretty well, right? I'm trying to not make it as difficult.
You did do very well. You are a fantastic speaker when you're explaining things and stuff like that. But I have a couple questions for you from everything that you had already said. So just because I want a full clarity of how you see this, when you encountered God and Jesus in your near-death experience, or in the experience that you had, how did they appear to you? Were they in a form, or were they energy? Were they a light?
Energy.
They were energy.
God was love and the light and the warmth of everything. God is. There is nothing else. Okay? It's as simple as God is, right? God will never take on a form, right? Because then if a human would say, well, God showed me as an old man and this and slippers, and and that's forever. God has no image. We have no image. All right. I simply existed when I was looking at my body as a frequency, energy. We exist as energy. Energy isn't even real, but it's a frequency. Okay. So that's what Father is. But Father was this most magnificent light, this beautiful light, and the love, right? So when Jesus came And I said, again, nobody showed me anything. I simply instantly knew his energy. I knew exactly who it was.
Mhm.
It was like getting up and going to mow the lawn that you've done 5,000 times. That kind of feeling, right?
Mhm.
That's exactly what it was like. It was an instant knowing of everything. But it was the light. That was Father. That's all I can say. Light and love, because that's who we are. We are light and love. We are the spitting image of our Father. We are our Father. So that was how my NDE took shape, right? There was no, Jesus did not show up because, now that I look back on it, having 3,200 lives, I instantly knew who it was. There was no need to have to see an image of somebody I already recognized. So it was just an instant knowing. And it's so hard to tell you what an instant is. Before you can even think that you want to turn on the light in a dark room, it's it's given to you that quickly. Okay. So it is an instant communication. So it was just an instant knowing. So that's how they, it was an energetic convergence of all three of us becoming all one again and welcoming each other. And of course, um, me thinking I'm just a human being to have this this profound experience of love and light and total acceptance, no judgment, just love. Yeah, it was just an instant recognition. But Father was the love and the light. He was the love and the light.
Wow. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean by what you just said. So, we are going to go ahead and wrap this up, but before we wrap it up, you have some phenomenal information on your YouTube channel, and you do a live, I believe, every Friday.
That's
Tell
correct.
the guest about your channel, tell the guest where they can find you, and we'll close out after that.
Sure. I have two places that you can find me. I do have a website, loveandlightjason.com. That is where you can find me if you want a one-on-one session with me. It shows you everything. So if you go there, that's my website. Again, loveandlightjason.com. Now, if you want the information on my YouTube channel, it's my same name, right? Love and Light Jason. So if you type in Jason Janas or Love and Light Jason, you'll see my webpage, and you can go to my videos. You can see my live sessions. And of course, you can always reach out to me there. But if you truly want a one-on-one session, it shows the prices and ways to get a hold of me. The regular way to my email, my Gmail account. But that's where you can find me.
All right, that's perfect, perfect, perfect. So we're going to go ahead and close out now. Thank you, Jason, so much for being here. And I also want to thank the guest for watching. If you've made it to the end, I would love to hear from you in the comments. Your words of encouragement mean a lot, not just to me, but for everyone who comes on and shares their deeply personal experiences. These are real people and they do read your comments. The best way to support the channel, and I just want to point this out, it is absolutely free. Like if you liked what you saw, subscribe, and please share if you feel called to share. Until next time, stay curious and stay conscious.